everyone, it's Dr. Carmen Bryant. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. Thank you guys so much. Those of you that have joined, those of you that send messages, and all the comments. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. So today I wanted to talk about, let's see, I don't really have a title. Let me think. That repetitious narcissist. What if we say that? That repetitious narcissist. So let's talk about what are repetitions. Okay, so repetitions, for example, now those of you that bodybuild and those of you that are in the gym, please forgive me if I put some misinformation out there. I'm gonna go by what I learned from the trainer that I used to have, and I could be wrong, but just get the principle behind what I'm about to say. So based off of repetitions, the heavier the weight, the less repetition to build bulk. I think that's correct. So more weight, less repetition builds bulk, meaning that they're probably going to do also more weight training, so they spend more time in the gym. But more weight, less repetition builds bulk. Less weight, more repetition. So more weight, less repetition builds bulk, and less weight, more repetition tones. Tones the body. It doesn't build bulky muscles. So apply that information for a minute and what a narcissist does. I just did a webinar, and in the webinar, I broke down how the brain creates habits or automatic thoughts. And a lot of that comes from cycles and repetition and forms habits, forms lifestyles, So when I put it out there, make sure you go and purchase the class so that you can listen to what I talked about. So you're getting bits and pieces of it now, but you get the whole class in the class that I did. So it breaks down how the brain creates habits, automatic thoughts. And a lot of you are operating on autopilot, especially when you come out of a relationship with a narcissist. But a narcissist they operate off of repetition. They do something repetitiously in order to get a result, and they'll change the repetitions in order. If it's not working, they'll change the repetition, but their main goal is to get a certain reaction from you, a certain end result. So whatever they have to do to build that, to work and use that repetition over and over and over and over again. And what they notice is, and most of you guys are like, how do they know this? Well, if you manipulate people long enough and you're evil with it when you're doing it, you'll figure out, okay, by doing this, the human mind is a vulnerable, it's powerful, but as most people are very vulnerable. You have to build yourself up, but in order to build a habit, you have a habit of how you react to certain things. And so that narcissist knows by repetition, I'm always going to get this end result from you. I'm always going to get this type of reaction. And if I stop getting this reaction, I have to change up the repetitions into something else in order to get that particular reaction from you. And so you ask yourself, well, how do I break the repetition? How do I break these repetitions? How do you break habits in your life? Well, the thing about it is that most people, and I'm going to include myself in there because I hate to point fingers at people where you feel condemned or convicted or guilty or shamed, because I too am a survivor of narcissist abuse, and domestic violence, which is the same thing. But people have this tendency to be lazy. And when it comes to, for example, going to the gym to get buff, you can't just stare at somebody, stare at a screen without you going and doing the work. When you see people that are bodybuilders, that are healthy, that are muscular, that are toned, it requires a lot of work to go in there and do that. They have to be very disciplined. They use temperance. They have to temperance themselves. They have to be careful at what they eat. They have to be careful at what they drink. They have to supplements, and they take care of their body. They pay very close attention to their body. They're very disciplined in going to the gym and making sure cardio versus weight training versus, so to get a certain result. So if a bodybuilder or a person that is into health, people that are runners, marathon runners just don't wake up one morning and decide that they're going to run a marathon. It requires practice. The first time you may run a mile, and you barely make that mile, but you're going to run that 1 mile. I'm going to practice until I can run this 1 mile in so many minutes. In the military, depending on your age, you have to run 2 miles in a particular minute. When I left the military, I think my time was maybe like 18 because I'd gotten older. I think in my younger years, I think the minimum time for me was like 17 something, So when you get older, it's like I think it was like 20 minutes. I may have been like 20 minutes at the time when I got out the military, because I was in my late 30s, but it's like it was 20 minutes. So for my age group, if I wanted to go out, I want to run 2 miles under so many minutes. So you train yourself for 1 mile, then you push yourself to do 2-3 miles, or maybe 2-3 miles. I'm practicing running 2-3 miles, 2-3 miles, 2-3 miles. But they train up to running 10 miles. And then they set a goal. This is the minutes I want to run this 10 miles. And they push themselves. They not just run, but they may go work out. They have to eat a certain way. And then they discipline themselves that I'm going to run this many miles, this many miles in this many minutes. If a person that or vegan, some people live the vegan lifestyle. Some people do it for health purposes. Some do it for their conscience, for the well-being of the animals, for the economy, whatever the reason that they're vegans. But it takes some discipline. You have to learn, because you're accustomed to eating meat. So now you have to learn what has meat, what doesn't have meat. You have to learn to read labels. You have to learn how to cook differently. You have to understand that your body needs certain nutrients and certain vitamins in there, and it's very essential that there's certain things that you get in your body so you don't have a vitamin deficiency. Some people just jump into being a vegan and they don't study it carefully. They don't talk to people that are more experienced to make sure that their body is not depleted of specific type of vitamins and minerals that the body needs in order to survive, or they have, I don't know if it's rickets, or they have whatever deficiency in their body and they become sick. So your immune system is not even built up. Well, if that's the case when you're dealing with bodybuilders, and if you're dealing with people that are conscientious when they're eating, anything, discipline yourself, then why do we tend to think that coming out of a situation like this, all of a sudden someone's supposed to just give you an answer and everything changes? What makes you think, and I'm going to address this on another video, what makes you think that all of a sudden you go to, well, maybe I can address it now, go to some type of therapy or some type of treatment, and you think immediately your trauma is going to be gone? The brain is so powerful, and the body is so powerful because your body remembers, automatic thought. Your brain processes automatic thoughts, create cycles, create habits, create lifestyles, create automatic responses. You have reactions. You're on autopilot. Your brain knows how to protect yourself, fight, flight, or freeze, put things in your subconscious memory, dissociate when you have to dissociate in order to protect yourself from going crazy or losing your mind, going into straight psychosis, the things that a human mind can do or a human body can do. So what makes you think that because you've been through narcissist abuse is very, very different than the average abuse that you go through, because it is so intense. It is so intentional. There's nothing that is by accident or coincidence dealing with a narcissist. A narcissist is always processing or thinking of a way to get over on somebody. Not everybody gets caught up with a narcissist, and there are people that get away, and they get away from because they're afraid of narcissistic injuries, and they may have been injured enough where they realize, okay, this prey is too big for me to bite. A lion that tries to bite an elephant and the elephant stumps that lion, they realize, oh, I think I bit too much, But there are narcissists, and there are people that, when that narcissist has tried, it did not work, So what makes you think that when you come out of a narcissistic relationship, whether it's with family, whether it's with a relationship, romantic relationship, situationship, or friendship, what makes you think that's like being hit by a truck? Do you think that a person that has been hit by a truck, that has broken most of the bones in their body, they have to relearn they have to learn fine motor skills again. They have their brain, because they probably have brain damage. And, and if they have frontal lobe damage, they lack empathy. Ooh, hit my own self in the face. I got excited. But, they have frontal lobe damage from brain trauma. There's a lack of empathy. They have lost the ability to empathize. Now, see, and that's another thing that we'll talk about later on, because there are people that grow up and develop narcissistic personality disorder, and there's some people that have had brain damage where they have a very low empathetic empathetic. They're low on the empathy scale. They don't have empathy like the average person does. That does not mean that they have NPD, but they also have a change in their personality from frontal lobe damage, from brain damage. And so there are some people that you may be dealing with that may have all the narcissistic traits, or they may have traumatic brain injury. And traumatic brain injury can manifest itself in low empathy. And then there's a difference between having low empathy, maybe having mid empathy. You don't have a whole lot of empathy. And then you have those that are have high empathy. And I'm not talking about the empath, but they have high empathy. So they're very sensitive. And then you have the empath that goes beyond that scale. The empath that is highly sensitive, highly intuitive, because they've been traumatized. Their nerves, it's like their nerves are just, the nerves pick up on everything because they've been traumatized. So everybody deals with trauma very differently. So you have those that are empaths, low or high on the empathy scale. You have those that are empaths that you're working with when you're dealing with trauma. And empaths are really all emotions, feelings and emotions until they develop. And when they grow and develop and they understand who they are, they understand how they function, they understand how to keep themselves away from certain things that can cause them to go into, what is it called? Implosion, but the super empath, they go supernova. Supernova is the last thing that an empath wants to do. They do everything that they possibly can do. A super empath, not just a regular empath, but they do whatever they possibly can to avoid going supernova, because this is, matter of fact, if they don't watch it, they can go, and I've seen people do this. I've seen people go supernova to a point where they ended up in the ER, and then they ended up in inpatient treatment because they had a psychotic episode, a psychotic break, because their mind couldn't handle going supernova. And when they went supernova, you would have thought that they were a narcissist for real. And I was like, wow. I said, I didn't even know that was in you, and it really, I'm like, wow, that's a super empath. And then it takes a while to calm themselves back down. And then the people that are like, yeah, I went supernova and they deserved it. And no, that is not an empath. That's just somebody that's ticked off, No, that's just somebody that's ticked off. And 9 times out of 10, it probably have an issue with codependency and everything. A real empath or super empath, when they do something like that, they regret it, because that's not the type of person that they are. They regret it. They may not want to have anything to do, but they still feel bad about their actions because they didn't want to be like that. So those people that are like, yeah, I'm a super empath and I don't regret nothing, and I'm glad I did that, and I'm glad, that's not an empath. That's just the person that's pissed off. Let's keep it real. So, but why would you think that when you come out of or when you realize you come from a family of narcissists, or you realize that you've been in a relationship, and this person, and to include your parents, caregivers, romantic relationships or friendships, they have spent that whole entire relationship repetitiously and systematically trauma bonding you. And I'm going to do a video, I'm going to do a training on that, about the systematic desensitization. When a narcissist systematically desensitizes you, and that repetition that goes along with it, that habit forming, but you have created habits. Your brain has created habits, algorithms. In the brain. That's where the computers come from. In the brain. Pick up on algorithms. Pick up on your responses to see how you respond and react. And most people that are responding to a narcissist, you're not responding to a narcissist, you're reacting to a narcissist. And the thing about it is that you have to break that. How do you break repetition? It requires careful thought. It requires you to look at the situation. It requires you to think on purpose. But most people get lazy because you have been so hurt. You want the answers. You want a quick fix. Give me the code so I can put the code in to break the lock. Give me the key so I can open up the door, and I have all these, secret strategies and everything. It's not a secret strategy. It requires you to be disciplined. It requires you to pay attention. It requires you to think on purpose. It requires you to look at your actions. Most people are like, I just couldn't help it and I went back. It was a choice that we made. It's a choice that we made. Now, I didn't go back. When I left, I made up my mind. I wasn't going back. Was it a hard decision to make? Absolutely, because there was a lot of stuff that was connected to it. Now, some people go back a couple of times before they decide to break it off. I was always the type of person, when I make my mind up for something, I'm going to do it no matter how bad it feels. And it feels horrible, and it feels bad. And you go through all sorts of things. And you may talk to the person, and then you get these feelings, and then. But at the same time, to keep reminding yourself, this is why I left. I can't. And they'll always show their face. When they can't get their way, they'll always show their face. If a person is going to change, when you are away from the person, that's why you separate. When you're away from a person, if they don't change while you're away, why would you get back with them and you still notice they have all the same traits of doing the same thing? Narcissists never change. Tigers don't change their stride. I've never seen a leopard turn into a tiger. I've never seen a cheetah turn into a lion. It don't happen. And I've never seen them get rid of their stripes or their spots. Leopards don't get rid of their spots. You identify them by the way they live. You identify a tree by the fruit that is on the tree. And then you ask, like, I don't know. Well, is she really a narcissist? It doesn't matter whether or not the person is a narcissist or not. How is that person treating you? Are you being treated like a royal king or queen? And when I say that, are they treating you? When you have boundaries, do they respect your boundaries? Do they call you everything but your first name? Do your kids know you by everything but your first name? You dummy, you an idiot, you a garden utensil, you a female dog, you whatever. That's how you want to be treated, and that's where you think that you're going to change that person. You're not going to change that person. And then the thing about it is stop trying to convince yourself in a process of denial but I'm gonna stay here and I love him or I love her, and I'm gonna stay here, because in your mind you think that you can change them. You can't change nobody. And when you jump into a relationship and they have a history of doing this in their last relationship, ex-wives, ex-girlfriends, with their own parents and with their own friends or with their own siblings or whatever, they have a habit doing it, that's a red flag. Now, this is mama talking to you, baby. Let me tell you something. You better look to see how they handle their mama, because the way that they handle their mama is the way that they're going to handle you. How do they handle their sisters? That's the way that they're going to handle you. How do they handle their father or the male influences in their life? That's the way that they're going to handle you, honey. So you better pay attention, because this is not the time we just let our guards down, and it's going to take time. It's a process. You're trying to skip the process. Don't skip the process. The process is very painful. The process of rehabilitation after a serious car accident requires a neuropsychologist, a cognitive specialist, a physical therapist, those that specialize in this, teaching your brain to connect itself again, teaching fine motor skills, teaching you to hold a spoon to feed yourself, being able to put a button, you're a certain age, put a button back in there, teaching you how to walk, something that you've been doing since you were an infant. You've been walking, teaching you how to formulate words. You have a speech therapist that teaches you how to formulate words. If this can happen in the natural and you go to the hospital after an accident, then what makes you think that when you come out of a relationship with a narcissist that immediately things are going to change? You can put band-aids on a whole lot of things. A lot of times, I hate to say this, forgive me, I am a therapist. A lot of times because of insurance purposes, we have to learn quick methods and quick methods and apply tactics to help you how to cope with depression, cope with anxiety, how to do certain things to keep it at bay. But what about hitting the root of the problem? Because if you get rid of the root of the problem, you're not going to have the symptoms. Symptoms are just a sign of a bigger problem that lies beneath. And yes, as therapists, we have to teach, because the insurance company is not long-term, and so we have to teach coping mechanism. We have to teach things, we can hit the root and everything, but there's a difference between making a person capable of coping and feeling better, as opposed to making a person whole, to be healed from something within. And that may go way back to childhood. And then the more trauma you've been through childhood, the narcissist is just the topping on the cake. That's just the peak of the iceberg. The rest of it is under the water. Isn't it it's only 1/3 of the iceberg that's showing on the top of the water. The rest of it is up underneath the water. And so there's deep stuff that may be that's why I always emphasize, get some counseling. Get some counseling and get a counselor that fits you. Get a counselor. If you are a Christian, ask them. If you are a believer or a Christian, ask them. Don't ask if they're a Christian counselor, because some people are certified Christian counselors. They're certified so they understand our language. They understand, no, ask them, are you saved? Are you a believer? What do you believe? Because if you believe, then, and then you and I have the same belief. And if there's anything else, those of you that are within the Muslim communities, if you are within a Buddhist community, you have to find someone that fits you, and you have to use what fits you and your religious belief, your spiritual belief. And if you don't have, use the principles that you learn in counseling to apply it to your situation. But that's all I have to say about that. And I really highly recommend a lot of you go find a therapist. Go look on betterhelp.com/Dr. Carmen. And if you hit that link, it will give you a 10% discount. It's a very nominal fee. I looked at the fees at what they charge people. It's way less, like 75% less than what I charge. Because my prices are for counseling itself, not coaching. Counseling is $275 for the initial and $250 thereafter. Now, coaching is a little less expensive. But therapy by itself, that's how much I charge. And they not even as much as I charge. So betterhelp.com Dr. Carmen. You can find a therapist. You get a 10% discount. If you're having any type of financial issues, you let them know. And what they'll do is they will work with you, and they may even give you a grant, not for free, but they'll give you a grant to help reduce the cost of therapy. But some of you really need therapy. You do. And stop falling for these people that tell you one session will clear everything everywhere. Be careful. Those of you, now, if this is what you are, you're a new ager, if you're into Wicca and all that kind of stuff, that's you. You do you, boo-boo. But as for me and my house, and those people that are believers like me, I don't believe in mysticism. I don't believe in witchcraft. I don't believe in this new age stuff. I'm just not into that. That's not me. That's just my belief. That's not that. I respect yours, but that's, you know what I mean? That's me. That's me. And I'm just saying you have to be careful, because if that's not something that you want to get into, then you have to be careful, even with the wording, the language you can pick up. But if they tell you that, one session is going to clear everything, you might want to question that. You might want to question that. Just like you have to be very cognizant of people when they're narcissists or manipulative, and you're being cognizant about that. Be cognizant about who gets into your head. Because one thing I don't do is I don't let folks get up in my head like that. And you shouldn't let people get up in your head like that. You done did that for too many years. And so for too many years, you let somebody run in your head. And so now, they were living for rent-free in the reality in your head. And now you got the residue or the narcissistic fleas that are in there. So don't believe the hype. Don't believe everything you hear. Progress, time, healing. You have to take the time to heal. It takes time to heal. You don't go to school one day and come out with a master's degree or a doctor's degree. It takes time, patience. That is a sacrifice. And just like you are your greatest asset, you have to sacrifice some things, meaning that you have to make some decisions that are very uncomfortable to go no contact, and your emotions are everywhere. To stop talking to them, to break up with them, to certain things you have to do. I'm not going to pick up no matter how much I want to. My body screams out. It's because of the fact you're going through withdrawal. My body is screaming out. I just have to. And then you're going and looking, and your heart is broken, and you just want some relief. Well, when you're coming off of drugs and alcohol, and the drugs are coming out of your system, you want a relief from the withdrawals. And so your best thing, in your mind, you're thinking, I just go back. But guess what? It was tearing up your body. It was killing you from the inside out. That narcissist is killing you from the inside out, destroying and damaging your mind, destroying and damaging your family. I always say that, physical scars, physical wounds, they heal. And then you have physical scars. You can look at the physical scars and think of the story, but it may not emotionally affect you. But psychological scars last a long time. And that's in the form of PTSD, reoccurrent memories and flashbacks and hypervigilance and fight, flight, or freeze, so you can see how much damage, psychological abuse. That's why all narcissists do not abuse physically. A lot of them have determined that physical abuse may reinforce everything that I'm doing psychologically. If you get out of line, maybe I may have to go to physical abuse because I know it works. But they determined, by trial and error, repetition, training, that it is easier to manipulate you and control you psychologically. It's easier to do that and tear you down from the inside out, tear down your whole structure. So like I said, go to betterhelp.com/Dr. Carmen. Click on the link. You get a 10% discount. Having any financial issues, let them know. When you're looking for therapists, don't, are you a narcissist specialist? Ask them about the symptoms. Do you understand PTSD? Do you understand trauma? Do you understand the long-term effect of trauma? Do you understand manipulative people? Do you understand complex PTSD? Ask them about the symptoms that you have, because many of us knew about the symptoms and everything, but we didn't have a name to put together, and we came up with the name, narcissist abuse, gaslighting, flying monkeys, So don't underestimate a therapist. They may be there to help you. And if you are interested in coaching, you're welcome to contact me at drcarmenbryant@outlook.com, and I will provide you with my fees for coaching. It's a nominal fee, and just let me know, because I fill up really quick. But once again, I thank you guys all, and you guys go be great.